Brought to you by WikiVidi.com. Dark Shadows film. Dark Shadows is a 2012 American horror comedy film based on the Gothic television soap opera of the same name that was broadcast between 1966 and 1971. The film was directed by Tim Burton, and stars Johnny Depp, Michelle Pfeiffer, Helena Bonham Carter, Eva Green, Earle Haley, Jonny Lee Miller, Chloë Grace Moretz and Bella Heathcote in a dual role. The film had a limited release on May 10, 2012, and was officially released the following day in the United States. The film performed disappointingly at the US box office but did well in other foreign markets. The film received mixed reviews. Critics praised its visual style and consistent humor, but felt it lacked a focused, substantial plot and developed characters. The film was produced by Richard D. Zanuck, who died 2 months after its release. It featured the final appearance of original series actor Jonathan Frid, who died shortly before its release. It was the 200th film appearance of actor Christopher Lee, and his 5th appearance in a Burton film. Plot. In 1760, the Collins family moves from Liverpool, England to Maine, and establishes the fishing town Collinsport, where they built their estate Collinwood. When he first arrives, the young son Barnabas meets the young Angelique Bouchard, who instantly becomes besotted with him. Angelique's witch mother, who was with her at that time, warned her of socializing with people of noble birth. This, however, did not stop Angelique from following the family for many years, hoping to be loved by Barnabas, but to no avail. By 1776, Barnabas, now a grown man, falls in love with a young woman named Josette Dupré. Scorning Angelique, who was now working as a maid in his household, turning to black magic, Angelique curses the Collins family, first killing Barnabas' parents in an assumed accident, then by enchanting Josette to leap to her death off a cliff called Widow's Hill. In a fit of grief, Barnabas attempts to leap to his own death but fails as Angelique curses him to the immortal life of a vampire. When he still rejects her advances, she turns the town against him and he is buried alive in a coffin. In 1972, a young Maggie Evans, under the assumed identity of Victoria Winters, applies for a job as a governess at Collinwood, and meets with the current reclusive matriarch Elizabeth Collins Stoddard. Her nephew David, for whom Victoria will be caring, believes his mother, who drowned in a boating accident, still visits him. Victoria does not divulge that since her young age she too can see ghosts. After meeting with David, his live-in psychiatrist Julia Hoffman, his father Roger, and Elizabeth's rebellious daughter Carolyn, Victoria is hired by Elizabeth. That night, Victoria sees the ghost of Josette, who warns that help's coming, before disappearing after falling from a chandelier. Elsewhere, a group of construction workers dig up Barnabas' coffin, and inadvertently free him. After satiating his bloodthirst of 196 years and shocked by the modern times he finds himself in, Barnabas returns to Collinwood and hypnotizes the groundskeeper Willie Loomis as his personal Renfield and introduces himself to the family as a distant relative. Elizabeth believes him to be a con man until he reveals hidden riches buried in a secret passage within the house, whereas Elizabeth thought the family to be destitute. After realizing who and what Barnabas is, she asks him to keep it a secret to protect the children of his true nature, passing him off as his own descendant, Barnabas Collins III. During his breakfast with his newfound family, Barnabas is instantly smitten with Victoria. When he meets her, as she resembles Josette, resolved to honorably win her heart, he seeks out Carolyn's advice on courting her. Angelique, now an immortal witch herself, learns of Barnabas' resurgence and visits him, informing him that she now has taken over Colin's sport as a member of the upstanding community. In retaliation, Barnabas reopens the Collins cannery family business and uses hypnosis to steal several of the fishermen crews who work for Angelique. As a result, she tries to buy him off. However, even after an episode of supernatural lust between the two, he rejects her offer. Meanwhile, Julia later discovers his identity by hypnotizing him and offers to cure his vampiric condition via blood transfusions. After successfully restoring the family fortune and business, Barnabas decides to hold a ball to reintroduce the family to the townsfolk, with Carolyn suggesting that they make it a happening, with musician Alice Cooper as the headliner. During the ball, Barnabas catches Roger stealing from guests' coats and later finds Victoria gazing at a balcony. Feeling comfortable around him, Victoria confides to Barnabas that SHE is actually an escapee from the mental asylum, where her parents had her confined since she was a child due to her powers. Meanwhile, Angelique makes a grand appearance in order to seduce Barnabas. When she catches him and Victoria kissing, she becomes even more embittered. Motivated after Victoria reciprocated his feelings, Barnabas seeks out Julia only to find out that the latter has been using his blood to make herself immortal. Feeling betrayed, he kills her and dumps her body into the town bay with Willie's help. After catching Roger trying to break into the secret passage, Barnabas gives him a choice: to stay and be an exemplary father to David, or to leave with enough money to live his thieving life elsewhere. Roger chooses the latter, to David's heartbreak. Barnabas' true identity is finally revealed to the rest of the family and Victoria when he saves David from a falling disco ball. Victoria is scared by the revelation and runs away. Upset, Barnabas barges into Angelique's office to demand her to release him from his curse, and while she offers him blood due to her knowing that Julia is no longer around to provide him blood transfusions, she also threatens to send Victoria off Widow's Hill the same way she did to Josette, and offers him an ultimatum: either become partners and lovers with her, or be locked in a coffin again. With Barnabas rejecting the former, she proceeds to do the latter, this time placing him in the Collins family mausoleum. Shortly after, he is found and freed by David, alerted by his mother's ghost, and they return towards the mansion. Meanwhile, Angelique destroys the Collins cannery and implicates Barnabas in the murders of Julia and all the people he had to feed on, turning the townsfolk against the family. At the mansion, Barnabas and Elizabeth see the police, Angelique, and the angry mob approaching as Carolyn withdraws into the mansion. Willing to turn himself in as long as she goes along with him, Barnabas reveals his and Angelique's true natures in front of an angry mob, and a fight ensues, pitting Barnabas and Elizabeth against Angelique. During the fight, Carolyn reveals to her family that she is a werewolf and joins her family in their battle against Angelique. But a fire later breaks out in the house. Ultimately, the ghost of David's mother manages to hurl Angelique against the chandelier, which then falls to the ground, mortally wounding her as she starts to shatter. She reaches into her chest and offers her heart to Barnabas, this time as it shatters as well, resulting in her death. Concerned for Victoria's well-being, Barnabas storms off to look for her as David informs him through his mother that SHES headed towards Widow's Hill. As David asks Elizabeth what they will do now, Elizabeth says that they will do what they've always done as the Collins family: endure. After catching up to Victoria at Widow's Hill, Barnabas stops her from leaping and refuses to turn her into a vampire to save her from eternal suffering as an immortal despite her request. Touched, Victoria throws herself from its cliffs anyway, resulting in Barnabas leaping after her and biting her so that she can survive the fall as a vampire. She awakens, asking him to call her Josette, and the two kiss passionately on the rocky shore. The closing scene is at the bottom of the bay. Julia opens her eyes to her new immortal life. Cast. At the San Diego Comic-Con 2011, it was also confirmed that 4 actors from the original series appear in the film. In June 2011, Jonathan Frid, Lara Parker, David Selby, and Catherine Lee Scott all spent 3 days at Pinewood Studios to film cameo appearances. They all appeared as party guests during a ball held at Collinswood Manor. Frid died in April 2012, making this his final film appearance. Production. In July 2007, Warner Bros. Acquired film rights for the Gothic soap opera Dark Shadows from the estate of its creator Dan Curtis. Johnny Depp had a childhood obsession with Dark Shadows, calling it a dream to portray Barnabas Collins, and ended up persuading Burton to direct. The project's development was delayed by the 2007-2008 Writers Guild of America strike. After the strike was resolved, Tim Burton was attached to direct the film. By 2009, screenwriter John August was writing a screenplay for Dark Shadows. In 2010, author and screenwriter Seth Grahame-Smith replaced August in writing the screenplay. August did, however, receive story credit, with Smith for his contribution to the film. Filming began in May 2011. It was filmed entirely in England at both Pinewood Studios and on location. Depp attempted to emulate the rigidity and elegance of Jonathan Frid's original Barnabas Collins, but also drew inspiration from Max Schreck's performance in Nosferatu. Additional crew members and Burton regulars are production designer Rick Heinrichs, costume designer Colleen Atwood, editor Chris Lebenzon, and composer Danny Elfman. French cinematographer Bruno Del Bonnel, known for his work in Amélie, A Very Long Engagement, and Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, worked on the project. Score. The film was scored by longtime Burton collaborator Danny Elfman. An album featuring 21 tracks of compositions from the film by Elfman was released on May 8, 2012. Soundtrack. The soundtrack features a score of several contemporaneous 1970s rock and pop songs, along with others from later and slightly earlier, including Nights in White Satin by the Moody Blues, I'm Sick of You by Iggy Pop, Season of the Witch by Donovan, Top of the World by The Carpenters, You're the First, the Last, My Everything by Barry White, and Get It On by T-Rex. Alice Cooper, who makes a cameo in the film, sings No More Mr. Nice Guy and Ballad of Dwight Fry. A cover of the Raspberries song Go All the Way by The Killers also plays over the end credits. The soundtrack, featuring 11 songs, was released on May 8 as a download, and on various dates as a CD, including on May 22 as an import in the United States and on May 25, 2012 in Australia. Songs not featured on the soundtrack that are in the film include Superfly by Curtis Mayfield, Crocodile Rock by Elton John, and Paranoid by Black Sabbath. Box office. The film grossed $79,727,159 in the United States and Canada, along with $165.8 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $245.5 million. For a Burton film, Dark Shadows achieved below-average domestic box office takings, with many commentators attributing that to the domination of the Avengers. However, the film was popular overseas. It came second to The Avengers in most countries in regard to opening box office takings. Critical response. Dark Shadows has received mixed reviews from film critics. On Rotten Tomatoes, The film has an approval rating of 37% based on 233 reviews with an average rating of 5.3/10. The site's critical consensus reads, "The visuals are top-notch, but Tim Burton never finds a consistent rhythm mixing campy jokes and gothic spookiness, with less success than other Johnny Depp collaborations." On Metacritic, the film has a score of 55 out of 100 based on 42 reviews indicating mixed or average reviews. Some critics felt that the film lacked a focused or consistent plot, a genre pointing to Graham Smith's script, and that some jokes fell flat. Some further claimed that Tim Burton and Johnny Depp's collaborations have become tired. Many of the same and other reviewers, however, noted its visual style was impressive. Positive reviewers, on the other hand, opined that the film did successfully translate the mood of the soap opera, also acclaiming the actors, most notably Depp as Barnabas, who several said was the standout character due to his humorous culture shock, as well as Pfeiffer and their characters, and further that the film's 70s culture pastiche worked to its advantage. Roger Ebert said, "The film offers wonderful things, but they aren't what's important. It's as if Burton directed at arm's length, unwilling to find juice in the story." Ebert later noted that much of the amusement comes from Depp's reactions to 1970s pop culture, eventually concluding that the film begins with great promise but then the energy drains out, giving it 2.5 stars out of 4. Manohla Dargis, writing for the New York Times, said that it isn't among Mr. Burton's most richly realized works, but it's very enjoyable, visually sumptuous, and despite its lugubrious source material and a sporadic tremor of violence, surprisingly effervescent, and opined in a mostly positive review that Burton's gift for deviant beauty and laughter has its own liberating power. Rolling Stone's Peter Travers gave the film a mixed 2.5 stars, claiming after a fierce and funny start, Dark Shadows simply spins its wheels, and adding that the pleasures of Dark Shadows are frustratingly hit and miss. In the end, it all collapses into a spectacularly gorgeous heap. In the Washington Post, Anne Hornaday dismissed the film, awarding it just 1.5 stars, explaining that Burton's mashup of post-60s kitsch and modern-day knowingness strikes a chord that is less self-aware than fatally self-satisfied. Dark Shadows doesn't know where it wants to dwell, in the eerie subversive penumbra suggested by its title, or in playful go-for-broke camp. Richard Corliss in Time pointed out that Burton's affection is evident in his homage, sometimes acute and reasoned, all right. So Burton has made less a revival of the old show than a hit-or-miss parody pageant, but praised the star power of the film, relenting that attention must be paid to movie allure in a star like Depp and his current harem. Angelique may be the only Satanist among the women here, but they're all bewitching. Peter Bradshaw in the British newspaper The Guardian weighed the film in a mixed write-up, giving it 3 stars out of 5, and pointing out his feeling that the gothy, jokey darkness of Burton's style is now beginning to look very familiar. He has built his brand to perfection in the film marketplace, and it is smarter and more distinctive than a lot of what is on offer at the multiplex. But there are no surprises. There are shadows, but they conceal nothing. Home media. Dark Shadows was released on both Blu-ray and DVD in the United States on October 2, 2012. The date confirmed by the official Dark Shadows Facebook page and the official Dark Shadows website. The film was released on both formats several days earlier in Australia, in stores on September 24, and online on September 26, 2012. The film was released on October 15, 2012 in the UK. The DVD includes just one featurette, The Collinses' Every Family Has Its Demons, while the Blu-ray contains a total of 9 short featurettes and 6 deleted scenes. Several worldwide releases of both the DVD and Blu-ray contain an ultraviolet digital copy of the film. Possible sequel. On December 7, 2011, Pfeiffer told MTV that she is hoping sequels will be made for the film. On May 8, 2012, Variety reported that Warner Bros. May want to turn Dark Shadows into a film franchise. On the same day, Collider.com mentioned that the ending lends itself to a possible sequel. When Burton was asked if he thought that this could be a possible start to a franchise, he replied, "Number because of the nature of it being like a soap opera, that was the structure. It wasn't a conscious decision. First of all, it's a bit presumptuous to think that, if something works out, that's one thing, but you can't ever predict that. The ending had more to do with the soap opera structure of it." Brought to you by WikiVidi.com. Would you like to know more?